The approval by Cabinet of the ban on the use of and importation of the highly hazardous pesticide Terbufos has been welcomed by some civil society groups. A step back, remember, in October last year, 6 children died after eating snacks bought at a spaza shop in Naledi in Soweto. Known as halipirimi, Terbufos is a chemical compound classified as an organophosphate and is used as an insecticide as well as pesticide in some of the cases. Let's look at this now in greater detail. Dr. Gerhard Verdoorn is a toxicologist and joins us now for this conversation. A very good evening to you, Doctor, and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, let's start with your reaction to Cabinet approving an immediate countrywide ban on the use and import of Terbufos.
Well, it took us by slight surprise because we've been forewarned by the government already in December last year. They were looking into the matter of Terbufos being available in the country, and there were visits by the Department of Agriculture to the manufacturers. But we are quite surprised about this step from the government because at this stage there is no proof that the chemical that was involved in the death of the children, which we all absolutely stand against, is unfortunately, we believe that that chemical is not of South African origin but is of foreign origin. And as far as we are concerned, we haven't seen any evidence to this date that the chemical that was involved in the death of the children was actually a locally produced Terbufos. So we think it is, at this stage, a preemptive strike against Terbufos, which is locally manufactured, and it's unjustified because, again, the industry and the agricultural sector was not properly involved in the discussion about this story. And it just to ban something because children died from it doesn't mean that it is justified, because you have to prove that it is South African produced and it was leaked out of the value chain or stolen from a farm. And our information is completely contrary to what is believed currently by the government. And we've made it quite clear to them in reports to the ministers of different departments. And I think it fell on slightly deaf ears, and we would have liked to see better consultation with the agriculture sector and also with the pesticide sector. But there was a one-sided consultation with the anti-pesticide groups and with lobbyists out there, and they are very much against the use of Terbufos. Now, that's understandable because no one wants to see anybody dying from any pesticide whatsoever. But if we believe that it is not the local South African Terbufos, then we still want to know from government where is the evidence that the chemical that was used in the death of our children out there was actually locally produced Terbufos, which we believe it was not. And therefore, we would like to see broader consultation involving the agriculture sector, involving the sector that I belong to and that I work for, and then to decide what is the social impact and agricultural impact, because we can't just take chemicals away, which farmers need for the production of staple foods like maize and potatoes, and that can actually push up the food prices significantly if these things are just done in a lucrative way like this.
I'm going to get to the food prices in just a moment. I want to stay with what you're saying, because you're talking about the process of consultation here, and you are, of course, elaborating on it. But one wonders now, because it does look like the horse has somewhat bolted. How are you then going to be addressing some of these concerns? Are you now looking at approaching the ministry again, or what's next?
Well, the cabinet made an announcement that due process has to be followed. And that to us is a good sign, because due process is that you follow the articles of Act number 36 of 1947. In other words, the minister would have to publish a government gazette notice to intend the ban of Terbufos. And then the public has the right to respond within, I think it's 4 weeks, to that particular intent of banning the Terbufos. And that is where the farming sector, and I'm talking about all farmers, whether they're black or white, doesn't matter, and the whole agricultural value chain will comment on that, and we will put forward our arguments against this, because we still maintain that it is not our Terbufos that was responsible for it. And if the government follows a due process, I think there's still a chance of, let's call it, rescuing the legally registered Terbufos in the country. But we will still very much support a process where we clamp down on any Terbufos sales in the country, whether it is the illegally imported stuff or whether a locally produced Terbufos, because it is a toxic chemical. It is restricted. It is only supposed to be in the hands of certain people, only for agriculture, and not on the streets and in the food factories that we saw on the television last year.
And that is exactly where I wanted to go, because, as you say, what is on the streets right now, one wonders if indeed there is any effective regulation, especially because anybody can get their hands on anything in the streets, and a lot of concern about the bylaws there. So if now there's concerns that this could even be a product that is outside of South Africa, let's speak about the regulations here and what needs to change, and how concerned are you that maybe some other products that should not be in the streets, maybe, as we are currently speaking?
They are there. I go to street vendors every month of my life. In Slieberg and Kariga, when I go to Joburg, I go and visit them. I find it very pleasant to walk amongst them and to talk to them and find out what they're selling. And I buy the stuff from them. And there's an enormous number of illegally imported products from different parts of the world. I'm not going to mention the countries because I don't want to belittle anybody here, but I see a lot of stuff from foreign countries on our streets that should not be into the country. And the question is then, how does it enter the country? It's been sold by people who have no idea of the toxicity, no idea of the possible threat it poses to their own lives. And that's a concern to us, because you get a poor lady who's making a living out of a little food stall where they sell this and that. They sell chippies to the children and some salt and some mealie, more maize meal to people. But in amongst that are pesticides that are not supposed to be in the country. And that is of deep concern to everybody, because it should not be there. And you touch on the issue of the bylaws. The bylaws are not properly enforced because we don't see enough law enforcement agencies walking the streets amongst the people to not go and arrest them, but to educate them about the fact that you should not be in possession of the stuff because it poses a threat to yourself, your children, your clients out there that might be buying it. And we don't want to see the street vendors or the spaza shop be closed down, because they are very often the innocent victims of something like this. They don't know about all these laws. They don't know about all these pesticides which are illegal. I think it's a case of all South Africans need to step up our pace of informing people and educating about people about what is legal in terms of a pesticide and what is unlawful in terms of a pesticide, and get those things off the streets, because I do not want to see a single child again be poisoned, and I've had enough of that in my life. And I think that's supported by agriculture, it's supported by CropLife SA, that we don't want to see anybody dying. But then we have to clamp down on stuff which is imported illegally and make sure that what we produce legally in the country is sold legally and used legally, because we are all part and parcel of clamping down on this thing that happened in our country last year.
And as you speak about clamping down, a very important point you're raising there is to educate the people on what's legal and what isn't. And I suppose it's a conversation we need to take further with the department to see how are they planning to actually even do this, and how often do they even conduct some of these sessions where they're telling people what's legal and what isn't. But Dr. Verdoorn, appreciate your time this evening. Thank you so much for talking to us. That was Dr. Gerhard Verdoorn, who is a toxicologist, and will continue to monitor the story, but also look to the department now to see what happens next and some of the concerns that are being raised around this consultation process.